24/7. 'Cause when we're together, it feels like we're in heaven. If it will get dark, you'll be my million stars. I know I can lean on you. Oh, you catch me like a leaf falling from a tree. If I'll be a shooting star, you make a wish. No, I don't fake this kind of feeling, never felt so real. My heart is on the table 'cause you're my everything. I do, I wanna marry you. 'Cause when you're around, I know it's true. The way you make me feel is so good, baby. So good, so good. Every single day we spend apart, I wanna be with you. Baby, take my hand, hold it tight just like you do. Feels so good, so good. When I wake up in the morning and I see your face, I'm becoming blind by your dazzling grace. What a beautiful feeling to be close to you. There's nothing else I wanna do. Ooh, and from the fields of flowers you chose to pick me. You're spreading sugar on my misery. And I don't fake this kind of feeling, never felt so real. My heart is on the table 'cause you're my everything. I do, I wanna marry you. 'Cause when you're around, I know it's true. The way you make me feel is so good, baby. So good, so good. Every single day we spend apart, I wanna be with you. Baby, take my hand, hold it tight just like you do. Feels so good, so good. And I do, I wanna marry you. 'Cause when you're around, I know it's true. The way you make me feel is so good, baby. So good, so good. Every single day we spend apart, I wanna be with you. Baby, take my hand, hold it tight just like you do. Feels so good, so good.
Well, good evening. How's everybody doing? Thanks for joining me tonight. My name is Lee Love, and this is Photo Mentor TV. Turn the volume down here. Photo Mentor TV, and we do this every week on Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Eastern. And, of course, the purpose of this, if this is your first time here, we're glad you're here. But we do this again every Friday night, and the purpose of this show is to help mainly new photographers, but any photographers, the struggles that they're going with, answering questions that they may have, and helping them with different issues. There's a lot of different, basically this thing grew out of frustration for me because I just saw so many photographers that were getting dismissed or not getting their questions answered on groups and forums. And I felt that somebody needed to step up and kind of help them out there and give them a lending hand. So anyway, that is the purpose of this show. Let's see. Tonight we got a kind of an interesting topic. I think you guys are going to like. It's something I talked about a little bit last week, called the undeveloped photographer. I'm going to expand on that a little bit this week. I'm going to dive into it a little deeper into one of the three categories, which I'll tell you about in a minute. Again, if you like what we're doing here, we'd appreciate if you would share this link to the site. You can find us on Facebook or YouTube. If you the address for Facebook is it's facebook.photomentor.tv, or YouTube, it's youtube.photomentor.tv, and either one of those will take you to the page where we stream live. I'm having a little bit of trouble getting live comments from Facebook tonight for some reason. I don't know why. At least on the screen, I can still see them. Let's see, what else? I think that's about it, really, before we get started. I do have a question. The question of the week is that I'd love to see you put in the comments section is, what is your greatest fear as a photographer? And I think that's going to play into some of the things I'm going to discuss tonight. But I'd be curious to hear what and it's kind of a sensitive subject. I understand not everybody wants to talk about it, but I think it'd be helpful to hear I think you may find that other people have the same fear. It could also be considered a struggle that you have, I guess. If you didn't want to if you don't want to use the word fear, you could go into struggle that you're having with on a topic, and we can kind of address that. Or maybe I can answer that next week on the show. Again, if you want to leave a question, you can do that by putting a Q. It'd be helpful, or just leave a question in the comments section of YouTube or Facebook. And that'd be great. I'd love to be able to answer questions that come up during the show. Let's see. So tonight I want to talk about something that I refer to, as I said, the undeveloped photographer. Now, this is going to be interesting because I'm sure you're not going to find anybody else talking about this. And I know, and it's not something that a lot of people refer to. A lot of people want to talk about the technical stuff of their cameras and how to do this, and that's all important. I'm not discounting that. But I think as a photographer, you're an artist. And so getting in touch with your vision and what you're trying to accomplish as a photographer is more than just being proficient with the technology. And so my approach is really which is a little bit, I think, unique, in trying to develop you as a photographer, your ability to see, your ability to tell a story first, and then let's work on the processing or the camera aspect and lighting, and then the post-processing aspect. So I want to talk to you about, just kind of mention a little bit about this undeveloped photographer concept that I talked about last week. I've been spending a lot of time trying to understand, the struggles that I've had growing as a photographer over the years, and also the people that I help, because I work with hundreds of different photographers and things like that. And so learning what that is and trying to kind of put that in a concise way that I can help people has been very important. My goal, of course, is to help you be successful. Now, success may mean different things to different people. So maybe you just want to photograph better photos of your family, or maybe you just have an iPhone and you just want to take better pictures with your iPhone. Nothing wrong with that. But maybe you want to do this as a business, or think you do. So whatever that is, you have to identify what that means to you. And my job is to kind of help you identify what's holding you back. So the three kind of categories I think you're going to run into, and you can, just about everything that you struggle with, I believe, will fall into one of these three categories. So as again I mentioned last week, I described them as confidence. I need a better word for this, but being overwhelmed, and that has a lot to do with the technology, but confidence, overwhelmed, and direction or lack of direction. I find that those are the three things that most people have difficulty with. So tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about confidence, and then maybe over the next few weeks we'll talk about being overwhelmed and the direction, as your photography wants to take or you want to take as a photographer. But typically, I find that the undeveloped photographer is a new photographer, which kind of makes sense. You're typically unsure when you get started about your ability to produce, usable images that the client or whoever you're photographing for is going to want. And so as a result, I find that a lot of new photographers overshoot. Now, the problem, they shoot, it's kind of what the term is, they call it, spray and pray. If you shoot enough images, eventually you'll get a couple that'll come out that are usable. And I understand that concept, and I understand why maybe you do that. But my hope is to get you out of that mode at some point, because what happens is when you overshoot, it results in a lot of extra work for yourself. Number one, it results in hours and days of editing and re-editing to get images the way you want. I see people post all the time about, hey, can you help me with this? Is there a way to move this person's head over here? How do I change this? How do I do that? And so they're expecting to be able to fix these problems in post processing when that's not really the place to fit. There are certainly things you can do there, and I'm a big Photoshop user, have been for decades, but that's not the place to fix your images. The place to fix them is get them right in front of the camera as close as possible. So anyway, I don't want to dwell on that. But then what happens is, so by overshooting, then you feel you have to deliver a whole bunch of images. So I see people delivering 30, 40, 50 images when really the client only needs about 10 or 12. It's probably all they're going to really use or like anyway. But they think that the undeveloped photographer thinks that by providing more images that the value is there and that eventually there'll be something in there that they like. But the other problem is that there's a fear, of course, of willing to put your work out there. I've seen this as well. Some people are afraid to show their work, and they don't think it's good enough. And this is a very common, issue with not just photography, but all arts. I mean, I think musicians and painters and things like that all feel a lot of the same feel the same way from time to time. Now, the problem is we all carry this baggage, by the way. I'm not chastising anybody, I'm not pointing fingers, because we've all gone through this. It's just part of the baggage that we carry, mainly from childhood, quite honestly. And I'm not going to be a pop psychologist about this, but maybe you're told you're not creative, or maybe you were young and you were not very good in math, or they told you weren't good in math, or maybe you tried to take piano or a musical instrument and you were told you're not musically inclined, you should give it up. And so what happens is, whatever this baggage and these things that happen in our past, we carry those forward. And so they cause us to doubt ourselves in a lot of aspects. And so I think that's one of the things that makes us reluctant and lack of confidence. The other thing that happens is, and why we don't want to put our work out there, and is the fear of failure. It's really our own ego, quite honestly. We're concerned about the fear of failure, rejection, or being embarrassed, and that's really your ego talking. It's telling you that that you really don't, that maybe no one won't like your work. And actually, some questions tonight which are kind of interesting. They fall right in line with this. But the point is, when you do that, I think you do your subject a disservice, because now you make it more about you instead of the person in front of the camera. And as photographers, if we're photographing people especially, or even a product or something like that, we should really be more concerned about the image and how we interact with our subject, not our own fear about whether they're going to like the image or not. So anyway, there's a couple of questions you should probably ask yourself as you're going through this, to help analyze or kind of develop where you think this comes from and how to resolve it. One of the things you should ask yourself is, what is it you really love about photography? I know I've done that in a lot of different subject matters. And the other question you should ask yourself is, why do you shoot your favorite subject for free? Or would you shoot your favorite subject for free? and because you love it so much. I hear this all the time. You say, "Oh, I'd love to do this full time. I just love doing it. I love it so much I'd shoot for free." Not that they are going to shoot for free, but the point is they just really enjoy photography, and so they're looking for a way to be able to do that and maybe make some extra money because they're just so passionate about it. And the last question would be, what is it you're getting out of the experience of photography? When you think about when you go back and after a photo shoot and you work with somebody, what is it that you really come away with? And so what I'm getting at here is you really want to kind of break down the essence of what photography means for you, so that you then can understand how to focus on that and not focus on the fear of failure or those kinds of things. Now, I can't answer any of those questions for you. I can help you kind of discover what they are. But deep down, you already know the answers. And the other thing is, it's more than passion and it's more than money. I know that a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm just so passionate about it." It's more than that. I know for myself it's more than that. And I know it's not about the money, because there are a lot of other jobs you could do that would make more money than being a photographer. So you really have to kind of think about what your journey is and what you're trying to discover about yourself and the purpose of your photography, because honestly, our photography is a reflection of our own self-worth and the kind of things that we feel and express. This is kind of part being an artist. Now, here's the flip side of that, and here's the thing that I think trips most people up, and that is that your self-worth and your art is not based on who likes your photography. Now, I know in a world of Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all these things where people have all these likes and millions of likes and YouTubes and things like that, subscribers, people look at that as a way to determine validation. And I'm here to tell you that has nothing to do with it. It has nothing to do with your self-worth or who likes your work or doesn't like your work. And you have to get out of that, because you're always going to find people that will like your work, and you're always going to find people that don't like your work. It's kind of like music. Think about it. Some people like pop, some people like country, some people like jazz. And it's always nice to hear that what we produce people like. I mean, look, I'm no exception to that. People say, "Oh, thank you for helping me, and thank you, I love this image, thank you for your work, oh, it's amazing." That's wonderful. I love hearing that. But that's not what defines me, because there are probably just as many people that don't like my work. And so therefore, I don't care one way or the other. That's not why I do it. So you have no control over what someone likes or doesn't like. And what I'm trying to get you to understand is, don't put your own self-worth tied to what someone likes or doesn't like. The trick is to find those people that like your work and not worry about those that don't like it, because there's always going to be the case. Again, it doesn't mean there's not constructive criticism. I have people that I seek out, that I love to hear from, that I trust their opinion on my work. But even if they don't like something, that doesn't make me feel bad, or doesn't make me feel less confident about my work. It just means it's different. Maybe they don't like it. Maybe I still like it. I don't know. There's always room for improvement. None of us have all the answers, right? But let me give you another example. I kind of share my own story, if you don't mind. So let's say, for example, well, we could go into a lot of different areas, because believe me, I have my own issues like everybody else. But what if I had a fear about doing this show? Or what if I had a fear about helping new photographers? I have reached out I know many of you that are watching this that I've helped and worked with. So if I were to let the fear of what people would think about my information or my show or whatever, then what about people like Sue Ann or Victoria or Kim or Jessica or Dusty or Steve or Jeff or Christian? These are just a few of the people that are in the Photo Mentor group. And I know I've helped them. They've told me they have, and I've seen their work improve over the last few months. So if I gave in to that lack of confidence, how would that make them feel? Would that make them feel like they're less important because I'm afraid of what somebody might think? So you really have to balance the two about your own work, your own building up your own confidence, and it's okay to look at that, and we all want our clients to like our work, but it has nothing to do whether your own self-worth or your own capability or confidence. So look, I admit, okay, I'm never like my own work. I'm always critical of my own work. I'm the worst enemy at all. I'll look at something and people, oh, that's fantastic. I'm like, oh, okay, it's okay. Why? Because I see what went into it. I know the things behind it, and I know I could do better. So I think that's something but it doesn't mean that I'm not growing and I'm not improving just because I don't like my work or I think I know in my intellectual I can do better, just like you do. But the key is not to get discouraged and not let my achievements, and improvements be diminished, because I improve every day in all kinds of areas. Let me give you another example, and then we'll move on. Let's say you're a mom. Are you disappointed that your child is not a prodigy, for example, or being accepted into MIT at age 5? Of course not. I'll bet you're excited when they learn to walk or say their first word or whatever. You experience their growth on a daily basis, and you just never discount those achievements because they're small achievements. As an adult, we look at them and go, wow, big deal. But as a child, they're growing. And so it's the same kind of thing in your learning of your photography, is you're growing every day. Now, they may seem small to you, but there's still achievements, and there's still things that you want to look at and accept as wins, actually, and not to get down because you're not making the progress. Look, I don't never am moving as fast as I want, okay? I always have bigger dreams and bigger ideas, but I can only move so fast. So anyway, it's just something that I don't want you to get down about. I want you to be very intentional about your own journey, and just don't try and be too bummed out whether people like your work or don't like, and don't compare your work to other people. That's the other thing, a mistake. It's okay to I look at other people's work once in a while. I don't dwell on it, but I look at it. Oh, that's nice. I see how they did it. I understand the lighting, but don't compare yourself to them because they're at a different place on this curve than you are. So, for example, let's say Lady Gaga. I'm sure she could care less whether you and I like her music, right? She has a group of people called fans who buy her music, and that's their goal. And those are her people. Those are the people that like her music, and that's it. But just because an entire different group of people maybe buy country music from, Luke Combs or something like that, it doesn't make her feel like it doesn't bruise her ego, or self-worth. Right? She has her thing, and that's what she does, and she's happy about it. And so that's kind of the way I want you to look at your work as well. So again, confidence, being overwhelmed, and your direction are 3 areas that are important to understanding where you are as a developed photographer. And I want to go into this deeper in the future. I don't want to spend too much time on it tonight, but it's a topic that I think that's important. And it's not something you're going to see people talk about on Facebook groups or probably in many other courses, because they all want to. It's easier to talk about and teach the technical babble, and talk about lenses and cameras. And some of you, good examples, some of you may look at this and go, this is a stupid show. Why is he doing this? And I get that. And if nobody watches, that's fine. If one person watches, that would be great. But that's why I do it. I do it to help those people that do connect with it, not the ones that don't. And that's what you have to do with your own photography as well. So I want you to look at that, kind of look at what you're doing. Just reach out if you need help, and guidance. But photography is a lot more about what's in here than it is what's out here. And I just want you to kind of work on that and reflect on that, because that there's if you've seen, I haven't really talked too much about this yet. I'm going to go into more detail in the future, but there's a whole method that I have, and that is for seeing the picture, learning to see, learning to tell a story, then learning the technology and the processing, or the technology and the camera capability, and then the processing and how to bring that image to life and to bring it to what you want. And so those are the things I think are important as a photographer, not the other way around. Most everybody else teaches the technical stuff first. So anyway, Getting more, being able to see and learning how to tell a story will give you more confidence than just the technical, because these cameras can do a lot of stuff, and we don't have to, you don't have to do everything manually anymore, although that's a whole nother issue. So anyway, so I apologize for going long on that. I know it's way more than you guys are looking for. You come here to get questions about photography stuff, and I don't mean that to be the case, but so anyway, listen, thank you guys. I appreciate it. And so Anna, hey Anna, nice to see you again. Anna says it's very true about the oops, I see what's going on there. Very true about some of the stuff I'm talking about, and that's great. And what's Karen saying here? Karen says we are all guilty of this. Yes, I know we are. I know, Karen, we are all guilty, aren't we? And it's a shame. It's just part of who we are, but it's okay. It's okay to be that way, because art is personal. It's very personal. And so as a result, we take it personally. And again, I don't want to dwell on it. I know we've all had this situation, because I know I've had many of you ask me about it. But here, I'll give you a real world example that I think many of you can relate to. You do a shoot. You think it's pretty good, right? You get your edits down. You send, let's say, 20 selects to the client. You send them to the client, the proof sheets. Client, you don't hear back. You don't hear back a day. You don't hear back 2 days, a week. And you're like, oh gosh. They hated them. They thought they sucked. What am I going to do? Has anybody had that happen? I have. But you know what? By doing this as long as I have, I now realize that's not the case. What I realize is these people are busy too. They have more going on. I'm not the only thing important in their life. Even though they may say, hey, we need these right away, other stuff comes up. So the problem is that we tend to think that we're the most important thing. And so if they don't get back to us right away about our pictures and our images, they don't like them. And that's not the case. So you just got to let go of that. But I know it happens to all of us. So sorry, what are you going to do? It's just the way it is. So anyway, thanks, Sue Ann. That's great. Sue Ann says, I was thinking the same thing, my own biggest critic. We just are, and it's okay. We want to be critical of our work, because that's how we get better, but you don't want it to be debilitating. That's the problem. So, all right. Okie doke. Let's see here. What's going on with my keyer here thing? I see. All right. Let's move on. Let's do some questions tonight. And again, thank you guys for hanging in there with me and letting me kind of wax on about some of this stuff. But it is important, and I think you guys will agree that over time, as we start exploring it, you're going to find it's going to be more important to you. Okay, let's see what we got here. First question for tonight is, I think this is the first question. Yes. First question tonight is from Katie. And Katie says she owns a 100 millimeter. Here's the lens question, right? I own a 100 millimeter lens. Takes the most beautiful portraits, and that's a great lens, by the way. That's actually a macro lens, but it's beautiful. And as she's discovered, it really is got nice contrast to it. It's just a gorgeous lens for portraits or macro work. But I need something for full length, and the 50 millimeter f1.8 that I have just doesn't have the same quality. Can you recommend something that'll give me the same look as the 100 millimeter? Yeah, sure. So first of all, let's put things in perspective, Katie. The first thing is the 100 millimeter lens, macro lens, I think, if I remember correctly, is about $1,200. So let's just call it $1,000. The 50 1.8 is $125. So, there's going to be a difference. I mean, they call it a nifty 50. It's a great lens. Everybody should have one, a 50 millimeter lens, but it's not, it's not the end all be all. So what I've discovered is that there are some lenses. So lenses have their own attributes to them. It's not just that 100 millimeter is 100 millimeter. You could look at 100 millimeter from Canon, and you could look at the 105 millimeter from Sigma, and they're going to look very different. They're going to have different contrasts. The color rendition is going to be different. The sharpness could be the same, but that's not really the issue. The bokeh could be different based on the number of blades that they have in the lens, etc. So that's the reason that they don't look the same. Now, if you want to go with a lens that I think is a closer match to the 100 millimeter, I would take a look at the Sigma 50 millimeter lens. Now, that lens I think is about $100 roughly. So it's not an inexpensive 50 millimeter lens, but it is gorgeous and it's a big piece of glass. But the difference you're going to find is it has that punchy contrast. It has those colors that you're used to seeing in the 100 millimeter. It's the same thing with Zeiss lenses. If you look at any of the Zeiss glass, I know I have a friend of mine who shoots Nikon, and he shoots all Zeiss lenses because the color is so rich and vibrant on them. So for him, that's what he likes, and so that's the difference there. So yeah, I'd say look at the 50 millimeter 1.4 from Sigma. I think you'll find that has a very similar look to it. Okay. Aaron says, would you put a logo on your digital prints you sell when you send them to the client? No, absolutely not. I would not. And this is a big discussion. Actually, I think it comes up again here. Actually it doesn't, but I think the topic does. Anyway, so the, look, people are buying a photograph from you. They're not buying a billboard. Nobody wants to put your name on their artwork below their name. Painters do that, and that's where it comes from. But photographers are not painters. If you want to mat it and frame it and put a signature on the mat, that's a different story, a small signature. But to put a signature on a print, I think is, unless maybe you're a famous photographer and people are buying your work as an investment, that's different. But, you're not Ansel Adams or somebody like that. And so therefore, I think putting a digital signature on a print is just ridiculous. I also have this big thing, and I know this is controversial. I admit this isn't a good example where people will disagree with me. I don't believe in watermarking my images. I embed the information in the metadata of the image, but I don't believe in putting my name on the photo for the most part, unless it's a promo piece or something. But because I think it detracts from the photography. It's an artwork. I don't want to. I see these. I had this discussion today with somebody on one of the Facebook groups. They have this nice set of wedding photos, and then they have these really scriptive signatures. Well, number one, I couldn't read the signature. I don't know what the person's name is. Number two, it detracts from the photo. I want to see the photo. Why? So if my eye is going to this thing called a watermark and not the photo, what good is it? So I know most people do it for two reasons. Number one, you should do it if they do it, it should be for marketing. People should be able to read it, and they want to know where that work came from. Number two, they think it's going to copyright or protect their image. It's not, and I'm not going to go into the details of that, but I could remove just about any watermark from any image pretty quickly using Photoshop. So that's not going to do it. And there's a whole bunch of legal issues that go in there. So anyway. No, I would not put your logo or your signature on a photo you're giving to your client. Okay. Nick Lee says, can you explain to me why you would use strobe or flash? Boy, this is a great question. One of my favorite. Those of you that know me know I'm obsessed with lighting. And the reason you would use strobe or flash is so many reasons. Number one, it gives you the ability to make an image no matter what the situation is. So many times you're in a situation. Look, I do most of my work on location. I'm an advertising photographer, commercial photographer. I do a lot of magazine work. So therefore, I never know what the situation is. On a magazine shoot more than an ad campaign, but on a magazine shoot, I never know what I'm going to run into. I show up, I meet the person. Maybe I have half an hour, maybe I have an hour if I'm really lucky with them. So I have to set up quickly and be able to shoot. I can't be dependent on the lighting that's there. Now, if it's there, I will use it. That's the second thing I look for. First thing I look for is background to help tell the story. Second thing is the lighting. If the lighting is there and I can use it, I will. If not, I will get rid of it, meaning by using my higher shutter speed or whatever, and I'll supplement it with my own flash. So the beauty of learning strobe or flash photography is it gives you complete control over your environment. It also gives you complete control over your images. So in other words, and the look of the image. Do you want it to be dark, noir? Do you want it to be bright, high key looking? You can do whatever you want by learning to control your strobe or your flash. So therefore, that is the second reason. And the third reason, quite honestly, kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier, and that was it gives you so much confidence. If you know you can go into any situation and make an image, maybe it's not perfect, maybe because of the situation, you don't have all the best lighting or whatever, but if you can make an image no matter what, then that gives you a lot of confidence. And so that's just some of the reasons why you want to learn how to use strobe and flash photography, because it will definitely, I promise you, if you learn how to use flash, it will change your photography forever. I just promise you, and I can show you that. So anyway, here's a long one. Caleigh says, I loved, this is good. This goes back to kind of what we were talking about before. I love taking landscape, cityscape, but do not like taking photos of people. I'm too scared that people won't like the portraits, and it doesn't excite me. Has anyone had success in doing nothing but landscape and product work? Well, there's a couple things to break down there. The first thing is Caleigh, you need to decide there's two things going on there. One is your lack of confidence of whether people won't like your work, and I don't think you like working with people. That's why most people like landscape, because they don't move and nobody's going to talk back to you. But it also doesn't excite her. Well, that's a different issue. So you have to kind of figure out, break that down. Are you not excited about working with people because you don't like people, or you feel uncomfortable with people? That's the difference. So I'm on the opposite side. I'm not a landscape photographer. I look at landscape photography and say, okay, that's pretty interesting. Looks like, maybe 1,000 other pictures I've seen that look pretty much the same place in Yosemite or somewhere. But anyway, or the weather's bad, which is why I love working in the studio, because I can control the temperature up and down. But anyway, and I have complete control of my environment. That's the other thing. So I'll leave it at that. I could go into more detail there. But the point is that, I love working with people because people are the most interesting subjects to me. They're all different. Everyone's unique. And so it just depends. Are you saying you don't like portraits because you're not comfortable doing them, or you don't like people? So that's the first thing you have to break down. The second question is, has anyone been successful in doing nothing but landscape and product work? Well, that's kind of an oxymoron in my opinion, because either one of those, especially product photography, you have to interface with people. Look, the photography is a people business. I don't care what you say. If you're going to do work and you expect people to buy it or enjoy it, at some point you have to give them the work and they have to engage with them. And so even if you're doing a product photography, which I've done many product shoots, it's on site a lot of times. I'm working with the people I'm working with either engineers or developers or the marketing to people to determine what the best look is, what they're going for, how the images are going to be used. So it's just like a person sitting in front of the camera. It just happens to be an animate object. But you still have the exact same issues, if you want to call it that, in working with a product as you do landscape. In other words, you have to engage with people to be able to sell and enjoy your work. So you're going to have to get over that. You can't just I'm going to hire somebody to do it. Well, nobody's going to take you on as an agent or whatever unless your work is already successful. That's not the way that business works. They want to sign people that are already successful and make them more successful. So my point is, Caleigh, is that you're going to have to be more of a people person if you're going to be a photographer, unless you're just going to, do stuff for yourself and hang it on your wall and never deliver it, or nobody's going to ever see the light of day. So Unfortunately, that's the problem. And it's not a bad problem, because I think if you listen to what I'm talking about in the first segment with the undeveloped photographer, that's exactly the issue. Is it's not, you can't let your work be defined by whether people are going to like it or not. Doesn't mean you can't improve it or change it, but that's not about you. That's not you. That's their opinion. So anyway, good question. All right, Nancy. Nancy says she's trying to understand why ISO of, let's say, 6,000 and above would ever be used. I'm brand new to digital SLR, so why would a newer camera have such high capabilities as ISO, and what are they used for? And Nancy, I get it. As someone that also came from a film environment, we used to look, oh, wow. I mean, we had what we called ASA, which is roughly the same as ISO. A slide film was like 25, okay? Can you imagine shooting nowadays at ISO 25, and that would be the only setting your camera had? So you have to be able to adjust. So the reason that these newer cameras have a higher ISO, there's two reasons. Number one, the technology just improved to allow them to do that. But number two, it means that you can use less expensive lenses, because if you don't have a lens that's a 1.4, 1.8, 1.2, then you don't, and you need more light, then the only other thing you can do, because you can't use a slower shutter speed because you can't hand hold it, is you have to have a third option is to change the ISO. By being able to shoot at a higher ISO, then you get a faster or a more sharper image, because you're able to hand hold an image like that. So for example, think about it. To go from ISO 400 to 800, that's one stop. Okay, from 800 to 1600, that's another stop. So to go from 400 to 1600, that would be like going with a lens that's, from shooting from, f8 to f4. Is that right? Two stops, one stop, two stops. It would actually be more than that. So you're basically, it's like having a faster lens every time you do that. Now, the trade-off, of course, is that if you get too high, you start getting some noise and stuff like that. But those of you that listen to me know that I don't care about that. I'd rather have an image that's not blurry, from motion blur, than a noisy picture. It doesn't matter if it's got noise. Great. The only people that really seem to care about noise in camera and photos are you and I, or other photographers. The client rarely complains about noise that I've seen, and if you do prints, then it doesn't even hardly show up. So anyway. So that's one of the reasons why having a higher ISO is better, and will give you, a better image in many cases. And also, a lot of us are shooting in lower light. I don't know how many times I've heard people say, I'm a natural light or available light photographer, meaning, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but it means you don't know flash photography. So therefore, you only can use available light because that's all you know. Well, if you're doing that and you're trying to do something at sunset or what they call golden hour, then you have to have a camera that will be able to handle those low light situations, unless you learn to use flash. And then you can make golden hour anytime you want, middle of the day, whatever. So anyway, okay. So let's see here what we got here. Got a short list tonight, so it's going to be a little bit of a shorter show than normal, I think. So Beth asks, I'm setting up as a photographer at a bridal expo this Sunday, and I'm getting nervous. I'm making a slideshow and I would like to reassurance that I'm good enough. Okay, here we go again. And this is again the same thing with confidence, and I get it. I totally understand. And so, first of all, there's nothing wrong with pushing ourselves a little bit. So you have to look at the job and determine whether you're going to be able to do it or not. And you're going to be able to do it at a reasonable price. And you're going to be able to give the bride the quality that they're looking for. That's the first thing. So, in other words, you wouldn't want to take on a job that's, a huge, destination wedding in Hawaii if you've never done weddings before. But that doesn't sound like the case. The other thing I would tell you, so there's two things going on here. The first thing is about the bridal expo, and then the second thing is about your photography. So let's talk about the bridal expo first. I personally, if I were doing it, I wouldn't do a slideshow. Now, I know a slideshow is going to be easier, and it's a little late because she's doing this Sunday, but I would pick my best image, best bridal image, one, and I would have a print made, a framed print, 16 by 20 maybe, is huge, a big print. And I would have that on display, and that would be the only thing I would show. Now, if you want to have a laptop and you have some slides, so they want to see more work, or an iPad, you could always pull that out, or you can have them set up an appointment, do something online, or visit with them or whatever, or go to their website. But I would use a print, and the reason is this. Everybody's used to seeing images online. So a laptop or a slideshow at an expo is not going to draw much attention. But seeing a really nice, well-done, high-quality print is really the way to show off your work. The second thing is on that is that that's really what you want to sell. You're not going to make much money selling digital images. You really want to sell a beautiful print they're going to hang over their bed or over their couch in their living room. That's really the value. That's what turns a photograph into artwork. And so you want to show your work that way. So when people walk by, they're going to be taken by it. I'll bet you won't have a lot of that at maybe you will, maybe you won't. I don't know. I'm not a wedding photographer anymore, but I doubt you're going to see much in the way of wedding photography, and a lot of it could be digital. So a nice print could make you stand out and would show off your work in its best possible light. You don't need a lot of prints. That's the other thing. You only are photos. You only need some really good ones. As far as your reassurance, I can't answer that with looking at your work, but I can tell you that you've got to really just put yourself out there and just take the job you think you can do. And and do another one. I mean, the only way you get better is by practice. The only way you get better is by shooting more. If you're that concerned, then I would try and get a job as a second shooter for somebody else, or do a lower level wedding that the pressure's not as much on. But the more you shoot, the better you're going to get. And that's just the truth of the matter in everything else. And all other aspects of photography as well. So, but the confidence thing is not, again, it's like I go back. You're going to find some people at the expo that are going to love your work, and they're going to have some people that are just going to walk on by. You cannot let that define you and your experience as a photographer. Some people are going to like country music. Some people are going to like pop music. It's the same thing. It's the same thing with your work. You just have to put your best work out there and keep moving forward and keep getting better and better. And not let that define who you are as a photographer. So, okay. All right. I think, believe it or not, that's all the questions we have tonight. So it's a little short. So I thought I may go long anyway because of the first session there, doing the undeveloped photographer. I hope that was helpful to some of you, and I'd like to expand on it more, and I plan on it. But anyway, so I think, a couple announcements. Sorry, I forgot to do this in the beginning, so we'll do this now. Just a reminder that the first Monday of the month, or excuse me, I always say Monday, I don't know why. The first Friday of the month is photo reviews. So if you want to have some of your work looked at and get a professional review on it, all the reviews are anonymous if you've never done this. So in other words, I mean, I'll know who you are, but the point is I won't mention your name, and therefore you can submit any work you want. You don't have to worry about being embarrassed or anything like that. It doesn't matter your experience level. Even if you have an iPhone, that's fine. You can just submit that kind of work. I've seen some amazing photography done with a smartphone. So that's not the issue. The images are looked at and reviewed on composition, technical ability, and the subject or story. And so they're not looked at as whether I like them or not, although I may make a comment on whether I like something or not. But that's not the point. The point is I'm trying to determine whether they work and whether they're using the visual language that we know and that the human brain reacts to, as to whether the image works or not and is accomplishing its goal. So that's really, and then if you're interested in doing that, you can go to review.photomentor.tv, and I think there's a couple of questions. One, I need to know how long you've been shooting, so I can kind of figure out what category to put you in, and then upload your image or images. You can do a couple of them if you want, 3 per month, and be glad to do that. Oh, excuse me, and be glad to do that. It's a lot of fun. I think people enjoy it. I do. I know I like looking at your work. The other thing is that for those of you who don't know, we have a Facebook group. It's photomentortv.join if you want to go there. Again, put some information in there. It's a little different group, I think. I think some of the members would agree than the other groups. You're not going to get chastised. You're not going to get put down. Every question you ask is going to get answered by myself or by somebody else. May take me a while, but I'll get to it. And again, my entire goal there is to encourage you and make you better. I'm not there to tear you down. I want to see, and this is one thing that frustrates me about some of these other groups, is because they don't seem to want to answer questions. You ask a question and they'll send you a link to a YouTube channel or something. You're not going to find that there. If you're not interested in helping other people, then don't bother to join, because that's not the kind of person I'm looking for. I'm looking for people that are interested in learning, that are open to learning, or that want to contribute and help other photographers. So if you're interested in that, check it out. I think that's it for tonight. Listen, thanks everybody. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed doing this. I want to make one last comment, if you don't mind. You know, we talked about confidence, and we talked about, how difficult it is in your own photography. Let me share a personal story, if you don't mind, real quick. This show is a good example of exactly what I'm talking about. I started this show last year, and in July. I didn't know what was going to happen. Still don't know what's going to happen. It's nerve-wracking. You maybe don't look like it when I'm in front of the camera, but let me tell you, I'm not used to. This is not a face that's used to being in front of the camera. I'm the guy that's behind the camera. So I don't know. I didn't know what people were going to say. I don't know if they were going to like it. I don't even know if they were going to watch. So, but I knew it was important to do. I knew by listening and watching what the struggles that other people were having in photography, that this needed to be done. And it wasn't about me. It was about you. It was about helping you. And so it didn't matter if I embarrassed myself. I embarrass myself probably every week on here. I look at the transcripts and I'm like, oh my gosh, I sound like an illiterate idiot. Okay? But I know the information I'm presenting is accurate, and I know it's helpful. And so therefore, I'm willing to make a fool of myself to help you. And I think I'm not saying you should go out and make a fool of yourself, okay? But what I am saying is you're in the same situation. You're not sure, but you got to get out there. You got to go and shoot. You got to continue to shoot, regardless of what you think other people are going to think of your work. It's the only way you're going to get better. And you build up momentum. And as you build up momentum and you start doing more and more, people see more and more of your work. And go back and look at that, and you'll start to see small increments in improvement. I hope this show's improved a little bit over the last 29 weeks or 30 weeks, whatever, when I started it. So I just want you to understand that this is not me looking down or trying to tell you what to do. I'm trying to tell you we're all in this together, but there's a reason for doing it. And we're put here for a reason. We're put here to do something to help other people. And so what you may not realize is your photography may be helping another individual that you never even knew you were touching. And I have stories I could tell you about people like that somebody did a photograph, and then all of a sudden the family member died, and that was the only photo they had, or it was the best photo they had, and it just meant the world to them. And you never knew that when you took the picture. So anyway, enough of that. Sorry about that. I apologize. But again, I enjoyed this again this week. I hope you guys got something out of it. And we'll see you again next week.